In the desert, the entire community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by God's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." And then God said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you." The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was God who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Almighty, because God has heard your grumbling against the Almighty. And who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Almighty when God gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because God has heard your grumbling against the Almighty. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against God Almighty." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before God, for God has heard your grumbling.'" And while Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Almighty appearing in the cloud. And God said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites, but tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Almighty, your God." That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. And when the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is that?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Almighty has given you to eat."
Our second reading comes from Matthew 14:22-32. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of them to the other side. While he dismissed the crowd, after he had dismissed them, he went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come out to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down.
Good morning. So sometimes we start out with a discussion question, right? And the discussion question I thought, I don't know if people are going to be willing to sit and discuss this with each other. So this is, if you'd like to gather in twos and threes to discuss this, that's great. And if you need to look within yourself for this one, that's great too. What I'd like you to voice inside you or with somebody else is what you're sitting with right now that is your biggest need or your biggest fear. You know, that thing that you worry about all the time, you probably thought about 45 times just while you've been sitting here this morning. That big, enormous, sitting like a rock on your stomach, on your heart, on your head, need or fear. We're going to take just a minute to bring that into voice in some way. You can write it down if you want to. You can just articulate it. You can discuss it quietly with somebody next to you. And we're just going to take a couple minutes on that.
Okay, you can talk to her. Yes.
All right, you got that nice and fresh and moist? Go ahead and wrap up. Oh, we could just talk about this all morning. Are we ready to reconvene? So the way things work with me and my higher power, this is what I do at work most of the time. I get to do lots of lectures at work. And the way things work with me and my higher power is when we start out by voicing this kind of stuff, voicing something and putting it out there in the universe, I believe that God uses that information to inform the message and for us to be able to hear what we need to hear in it. We have voiced it, and God is then going to use that. You know, God drops stuff into my head as we go along, and sometimes I'm really good at getting out of the way and letting God say what needs to be said, and sometimes I'm pretty good at getting in the way and going, no, they don't want to hear that. So my prayer usually is, God, help me say what needs to be said. Help me not say what needs to be left unsaid. Help me get out of the way and hear what you would have heard. So what's my point in voicing this morning our biggest needs and our biggest fears? As we talk this morning, I'm going to ask you to start keeping your eyes and your ears and your heart open for how is God already meeting this need. And just start listening for that. How is God already meeting this? So when I get invited to preach, one of the things I get to do is I get to pick the readings that we're going to do. And I knew the message that I wanted to do was pretty much about the entire book of Exodus. And I also knew that I'm not going to be able to have them read the entire book of Exodus in worship service and sustain everybody's attention. I'd sit and listen to it, but I might be the only one sitting here when we got done. So let me give you a recap. Okay. The Hebrews, our heroes, our protagonists. Our protagonist is Moses, but Moses is leading the Hebrews. And they're enslaved in Egypt. They don't like being enslaved in Egypt. They're being asked to do work they don't want to do. They're living someplace they don't want to live. They're being asked to live in a way they don't want to live. And it's getting harder for them. And the work is getting harder. And Pharaoh is doubling down what they're supposed to be doing, and things are getting real miserable for them. And so their prayers a lot are, God, get us out of this. We can't stand it anymore. Get us out of this. This is miserable. We don't want to be here. Help, 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 help. Right? So God helps. Yes? Some of you have read this book. You're with me. I'm not telling a lie here.
Right.
God helps. Gets them out of Egypt.
Yep.
There's a lot of messy stuff along the way. There are some plagues, there's a lot of bugs, some frogs, some blood. And then there's some killing of some firstborns. It's very uncomfortable. But eventually they get out. And they get out, and they're like hustling to stay ahead of being chased by the people who decide that they can't really get out after all. And so God helps them out again. God opens up the waters, and they go across the waters, and God closes the waters so that the people who are chasing them can't get them. And so they can't turn around and go back to Egypt.
And did that.
And they have a big party on the shores. Big music, Song of Miriam happens. They have a big party. Hooray! God saved us. God is so good to us. Yahoo! It's a beautiful thing. We're loving it. And then the very next verse is, God, you dragged us out to the desert to die of thirst. Where's the water? That is like the next thing that happens after that celebration. We are such fast forgetters. God, you solved my problem. You got me out of it. You saved me. You helped me. You're blessing me. You're blessing me. You're blessing me. Here's my new problem.
That's right.
Here's my new problem. So, you dragged us out to the desert. Check me on this. It pretty much said, you dragged us out to the desert to die. There's no water out here. And God provides water. Pretty sure he sends Moses out with a stick to whack on a rock and water comes out. I don't know how that happens. It doesn't, there's science and there's story, and sometimes they match and sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter. God provides for the need. Yay, we have water, we're not thirsty anymore. Now we're hungry. What are we supposed to eat? This is the desert. Hello. Okay? And that is where we pick up with the reading. And God says, great! I'll provide food for you. And I love this. This in the reading today, we've got grumbling shows up about 15 times. In the desert, the whole community grumbled. And they grumbled against Moses and Aaron. Let me tell you something. Leading God's people is not always a fun job. Anybody who's ever served on a board can give me an amen on that.
Amen.
Sometimes leading God's people is not a lot of fun. In the desert, the whole community grumbled. The whole community grumbled. And they're like, you know what? Back in Egypt.
Yeah.
We forget. We're such fast forgetters. We've already forgotten. Back in Egypt, where we didn't want to be, where we weren't supposed to be, where we were doing things we didn't want to do, and we were having to do more of them than we wanted to do. But back in Egypt, they fed us. We weren't starving to death. We got to eat all we wanted to eat. Now, do you think we really got to eat all we wanted to eat in Egypt? But our memory is that we got to eat all we wanted to eat in Egypt. They had lobster and steak. Oh, wait, we're Hebrews. We don't eat the lobster. But you get my point, right? And God provides again. God says, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And God lays out the plan for Moses and Aaron before he has Moses and Aaron gather the people. And I got a feel for Moses and Aaron. They're like, okay, this is the plan, and we get to roll it out to them. They're already mad at us. They're not going to believe this. And God says, okay, I will test them and see whether they follow my instructions. Now, you and I, we've read ahead. We know they don't follow the instructions. They already don't follow instructions. We don't follow instructions on anything. It is a wonder. It is a miracle. It is a miracle that God will still have anything to do with us, as lousy as we are at following directions. All right. But God says, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure nobody starves to death. I'm going to make sure you get bread and meat. I'm going to make sure there's donuts in the morning and there's steak at night. Well, quick. But there's food. Plenty of food. So much food that you will eat until you are full every day. And if you go beyond this reading, you find out that what God says is gather as much as you need to eat for today, and that's it. That's the instruction, gather as much as you need for today. If it's the Sabbath, if it's going to be the Sabbath tomorrow, gather as much as you need for today. Tomorrow, because we don't work on the Sabbath. But gather as much as you need until I deliver the next delivery. That's it. We don't follow that instruction either.
No.
If you read on, they gather a whole bunch and stash some away for the just in case, right? And then when they go to the just in case food, they find out that it rotted. It will not last. It does last on the second day, on the Sabbath day. They gather 2 days worth, that second day's worth lasts. It doesn't rot. Again, we got the science and the story, and it doesn't really matter how that happens. It's God. But the point is we don't follow the instructions. We just don't. Right? And God loves us anyways. And God shows up. And God meets the need. And God is prepared to meet the need even before we voice the need. So here we are. We're out in the desert. Breakfast shows up every day. Dinner shows up every night. We are not going hungry. So then you know what we're complaining about after that. Manna again. I'm done. Manna again. Again. Boring. Now I'm bored with the food. It's amazing to me. It really is. But now we're out in the desert. And there are a couple of things that God is doing with the people when they're out in the desert here. And I believe that this community is in a desert time right now. We have been sent out to the desert. We have left the place that we were, which was not where we were supposed to be anymore, and was no longer meeting our needs the way we needed to meet them. We've left the place we were, and it's uncomfortable out here to set up camp and break camp every time we gather. And it's difficult to be this community that we don't even know who we are right now. Right? It's hard. But there's some things that God does with us out in the desert. And one of those things is, God makes sure that we can't turn around and go back.
Sure.
We went across the waters, and God closes the waters back up. And whoever's in there is who's ever in there. But the thing it does for us is we can't go back, and we don't want to. That's not where we're supposed to be anymore. We can't do it like we did it before. That's the past, and we use it to inform who we are today. But that isn't where we live anymore. So that's one thing. One of the other things is God leaves those folks out in the desert for 40 years. I looked at a map. It doesn't take 40 years to cross the space that they eventually crossed to the place that they eventually got to. So why does God leave them out there for 40 years? But that's the theory I've got. It isn't my theory. Somebody else gave me the theory, but I liked it, so I adopted it, and I live with it. Is that the people, we needed a generational shift, and people needed to learn how to be free. They didn't know how to be free. They knew how to follow somebody else's directions, even if they didn't like them. They knew how to live in fear. They knew how to take actions because they were afraid of the consequences. They didn't know how to be free people and take action because it's the next right thing to do. They didn't know how to trust just God. You're out there in the desert, and God says, God shows up in the pillar of cloud for the first time during this manna presentation. The rollout of the manna message. We got the rollout of the manna message, and while Aaron was speaking to the whole community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Almighty appearing in a cloud. And what God says is, from this point, all you need to do is follow the cloud in the day, follow the fire at night. If you can see the cloud in the day and the fire at night, you're in the right spot. You are where I am. Where I am, I will take care of you, I will meet your needs. Now, if you read ahead, people still grumble. They crap about everything all the time. They're a bunch of whiners, and we are exactly like they are. I am a whiner about it. God provides for me, God gives me exactly what I'm asking for, and then I'm like, and now what about my next problem? And now what about my next problem? I got exactly what I wanted. Hooray, yay, this is wonderful. I celebrate for about 20 minutes, and then after that I say, well, now what am I going to do? Yeah, because I'm a fast forgetter. So, there I have some points here. You knew I would. Right. And one of my points is that God provides for us, no matter what. God provides for us even when we don't act like we're very worthy of being provided for. God provides for us. God makes sure we have what we need. Even when we, how do I say this? When I voice my need, when we started out voicing that greatest fear, that greatest need, most of us have a little picture in our head of how we think that's going to get met. Right? God does not always fulfill the movie we've written.
That's right.
There are times when God provides for that need in a way that we didn't expect. And there are times when God provides for that need better than we ever could have imagined. It turns out God has a better imagination than we have. Who knew? Right? But God provides for the need, even when it's not the way we imagined it, even when it's not the way we planned it, even when we don't recognize it right away. God plays the long game. So there might be some things that happen in my short term that feel a lot like burdens that I can look back on in long term and realize were enormous blessings. The country song, at this point I'm dating myself by saying there's this country song about unanswered prayers.
Good,
It's not a new song, let me say it that way.
but it's still good.
But it's still true, right? Sometimes the greatest gifts are the prayers that God says, nope, not answering that one. Well, it's not really an unanswered prayer. The answer is no.
Right.
No. I know better than you do, and no. Right? But the thing that I thought I absolutely was going to meet my need, that I absolutely had to have, that I imagined was going to be the answer to all my problems, turned out to have been a barrier for the more amazing thing that came after it. If I hadn't received no to that, I wouldn't have yes to this, right? So God can see farther ahead than I can. God plays the long game. God does provide, not necessarily in the ways that we think it's going to happen. We're going to have a home. Maybe this is the home for a while. Maybe we get to hang out in the desert for 40 years. Who knows? But God often, here's that thing about learning to be free, learning, spending the years in the desert to learn to be free. God often, this is my second point, God often gives us time to adjust.
Yeah.
Right? We need a little time to adjust. Have I told you guys about my mother's 3 big bites theory?
What?
It seems to fit here. If I've said it before, just nod and smile. But my mother has this very firm rule when we were kids about 3 big bites. Anytime she put a new food on the table, you have to give it 3 big bites before you decide if you like it or not.
Yeah.
Not little teeny tiny nibbles. You got to give it a real chance. You give it 3 chances, and then after that, if you don't like it, you don't have to finish it. After that, if you decide you still haven't decided you want to do a 4th bite, that's fine. But you have to give it at least 3. After that, you don't have to finish it. She was not a person that said, you clean your plate or else you don't get up. She just said, you have to give it a chance. I learned to apply the 3 big bites theory to almost everything in my life. Okay, and this is the way it works. The first time I experience anything new or different, everything in me, it's like all my fur goes up, stands up right on end and says, this is weird. This is different. I don't like different. It's very upsetting. Right? It just is. Oh, I don't like weird. So that's the first bite. That's always the first bite. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like what I did before. Right? I put on new makeup this morning. The makeup that I was using, I need to stop using that and start using something else. So I'm trying out something new. And it's a different texture than what I was wearing before. And I put it in my hand, and I'm like, it's wrong. It's just wrong. It's weird. It's different. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right on my face. I'm checking the end. I'm like, does this look okay? It doesn't. It just doesn't. And I'm getting. It's fine. It looks fine. It's fine. But everything. This is the first bite. It's weird. Right? Second bite. Second time I try something, it's still weird. It's still uncomfortable. It is consistent with the first bite. Third time, it's still consistent with the first and second bites, and I can start to evaluate it on its own merits. And then I can decide, do I want to try this a 4th time or a 5th time? Do I want to incorporate it long term? I can start to decide whether or not I can finish the entire thing on my plate. And maybe, jury's still out, and I'm not really going to decide if I want to do this again until the next time it shows up in the dinner rotation. And who knows, maybe my mother, in giving it 3 big bites, decided it was a royal pain in the neck to make, and she's not going to make it anymore. I don't know. All of us get the 3 big bites test. But it applies, we need time to adjust. Something is new, it's different, it's uncomfortable, it's strange, and I'm going to have to try it out a few times before I can really decide on its own merits whether it's of value for me in my practices. Right? We are learning to be a different kind of people. And We're learning to be a different kind of people who, and this is the people in the desert too, who depend only on God. Who depend only on God. It's terrifying. I've only got today's food. I'm out there in the desert. I've only got today's food. And the promise from the cloud that tomorrow's food will show up. Now, so far, I have an accumulation of days in a row in which that has happened, but it's still pretty scary. Out here in the desert. But learning to depend on God, learning to depend on God in the present, not the systems by which we did it in the past, not the stuff that we lay our security in, but the right now. God, what do you got for me right now? And, this is almost as important, not live in the past, but also we need to not live in the future. We not have to get all futurizing, where we build this whole fantasy of this is where we're going to be, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is, I need to not get all hung up in the future. I need to live in the right now. And, futurizing also goes the other direction, what do they call it? Awfulizing. Right, where I'm living in the future about it's all going to go to pieces. If every sentence I'm starting starts with if, I'm living in the future. And I'm hurting myself, right? So that's my second point. We got to adjust. And one of the things that we're adjusting, that we're practicing, is what's happening right now, where my feet are. Not what happened before and not what's going to come up. Just right now. Right now, here with the cloud and the fire. And my third point. Getting there isn't the point anyways. It's not. Because, are we there yet? Exactly what is the there that we're trying to get to? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? When I get there, I'm going to start looking at the next there. And am I there yet? Am I here now? Right? Getting there is not the point. It never was. It's just about being a community together wherever the community happens to be gathered. That's the other thing they got to learn in the deserts. They got to learn how to play nicely together. Let me tell you, they were terrible at that. Oh, they were no good at playing together. The entire Hebrew justice system got worked out in the desert. When Moses' father-in-law comes to visit. I don't know exactly how that worked out, but Moses' father-in-law comes to visit. And he can't get much time with Moses because Moses is from sunup to sunset settling disputes all day long, every day. And he's like, dude, you can't sustain this pace. You're going to break yourself. You're going to wear yourself out. And Moses is like, but there's all these disputes. We got to work them out. People, we got to do something. And he's like, yeah, we got to do something. You don't got to do all this by yourself. Find yourself some other people who have, some sense. Let them take care of 9/10 of this and keep the stuff they can't figure out up to you. And then you don't have to spend all day, every day on all this petty stuff. And people start to learn how to resolve it for themselves and learn how to work it out. We got to learn how to work it out. We got to learn how to be a community together. And the only way that I know to learn how to be a community together is to be a community together in all of its discomfort and awkwardness. And they said that hurt my feelings, and they did this, and it isn't the way that I think it ought to be done, and working all those bits out, and being spiritual sandpaper for each other. We're wearing off each other's rough edges. But if you're the thing that's getting sandpaper, it's a little uncomfortable, right? And if you're the sandpaper, you're getting worn down by it, and eventually getting used up. But we're wearing each other into smoothness. But the only way to be a community together is to be a community together and practice that. And remember why we want to be a community together in the first place. Why do we want to be a community together? Oh yeah, I like you. I do. Wait a minute. Some of your politics that I don't share. Some of you express your politics in ways that I'm not comfortable with. And some of you have theologies that aren't exactly the same as mine. Some of you have understandings of God that we don't necessarily agree. But I can see that you love and care and are passionate about your community. I can see that the people around you matter. And I can see that what God wants for you in your life matters. And that makes me love you. And I know. I think I'm right all the time, and I think I'm I'm exactly perfect and wonderful, but I know that I'm a little irritating day to day too. And you guys still love me. That's why we want to be a community together, because God has something for us to do. We got to get along well enough to, do it. So being there, getting there, is not the point. Now, while I was doing my research, I do actually research before I get up here and talk. Like, I do homework. I don't do it, A+ homework, and then I feel bad about that. And I remember that unless I'm a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon, most of life can be done to a B+ standard and it'll come out all right. But while I'm doing my research, I'm looking for songs that I want to incorporate into the worship service. And I trip over, I'm a sucker for those top 10 lists on the internet. It doesn't really matter what it is. It could be 7 things that are interesting about dirt, and I'm sucked in because it's a list. I'm not looking for this. I'm sucked in, it's a list. So I find this list of 10 praise and worship songs that we really need to stop singing. Right? And I kind of, another list is like 10 hymns, which was really kinds of hymns, that we really need to stop singing. And their rationales, some of which I agreed with, and some of which I thought were a little, pinky. But, in that, you're reading one of those articles, and then they'll have these little click-through links where they refer to some other article, right? Now, I'm down the rabbit hole. Now I may as well go ahead and go click through to that. And there was one, under the 10 praise and worship songs that we ought to stop singing, was this thing that said, and here's a case that somebody makes for why we ought to stop singing Oceans. I do. Now my fur's up because Oceans is one of my favorite songs. That's why I'm saying it this morning. There's 2 reasons we sang it this morning. This is the other one. Why do we need to stop singing Oceans? I like the theology in Oceans. I can live with it. And so I clicked through to read the article. And the person who wrote this article, their premise was, we need to stop singing Oceans because we don't really mean it when we sing it. And I'm like, nerd? And she says, we're singing this on Sunday morning, and we're singing with all this passion about lead me where my trust is without borders, and take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, right? But we don't really mean that. And when we get to led to where our trust is without borders, we're all scared, we back off, we don't do it. We won't trust God. And this is her point, and she's right. And we need to keep singing this song, in my opinion. Because every time I sing that, I mean it. I want to be led where my trust is without borders. I want to be the kind of person that goes where God needs me to go, even if it's terrifying and uncomfortable and new and weird. Right? I want to be that person. And I figure if I keep singing it enough, maybe I'll become that person through practice. So, I'm going to keep singing that song. But it's interesting to me. I get sidetracked by all these arguments, by all these people, and I look at them and I'm like, you have a point. You might have a point, but I don't like it. I don't agree with you. It's interesting to me. But the point is the journey. God is scary. It's so scary. I definitely can't do this without you. I'm so glad that you're there. I'm glad that not only you're there, but you gave me something here in the desert that I could see that reminds me that you're there. That the cloud is there by the day, that the fire is there by the night, so that I know for sure you're on duty. You're on watch. I don't have to do this by myself. Remind me that all I need to do is today. Remind me that you are providing what I need, even if it's not in the ways that I think it needs to be provided. Even if I can't see it right now. Remind me. Manna will be there in the morning. Quail will be there at night. Water turns up whenever Moses hits the rock. That's all I need. Greater trust in God, less trust in stuff. And I won't need to go back. And I won't need to hang out in the future. That's all I've got today. Thanks for listening.